No Triumph, No Tragedy, in which 6 very different disabled people talk frankly to Peter White about their lives and the way their disability has shaped them. Today, his conversation is with Ian Dury.
Ian Dury is a Londoner. At the age of 7, he contracted polio, which left him with considerable walking difficulties. After a combative relationship with 2 schools, one for disabled children, one a boarding school, he went on to art college, but he made his name in the 70s as a rock musician who wrote funny, biting and often risque lyrics. Subsequently, he branched out into acting and writing for the theatre, and also as a TV presenter. His first song to deal with disability was banned on grounds of bad taste. Ian Dury, you wrote that song, Spasticus Autisticus, well into your songwriting career. Why was it so long in coming as a theme?
Well, it wasn't a theme. It was only another song to me, but it was written in the year of the disabled. A friend of mine and I were talking about Kirk Douglas and the film Spartacus, and I thought it'd be nice to go out on the road. I call myself Spasticus. I was going to call it Spastic and the Autistics, because the blockheads is like claiming autism anyway. So my mate Spate said, no, Spasticus Autisticus. He's the freed slave, like Kirk Douglas was, the freed slave of disabled. I knew it would get banned, because I'm not daft. I knew that it would be considered in bad taste, perhaps even by spastics, which I've met a few who didn't like it. But I've met a lot more who did like it. And so it was a kind of semi-revolution. But bearing in mind that at the end they all got crucified, all down the Appian Way. We'd all be crucified down the Wembley Way or whatever.
But there was a particular incident, wasn't there, that actually gave rise to it?
Well, there was a bloke I met. He had cerebral palsy, really affected him really a lot, and after a gig we did, 2 of our crew carried him up into the dressing room to meet us, and none of the blockheads understood what he was saying. He had also a very strong Glaswegian accent as well, and it was really hard to understand him. And he eventually told me that he'd just come down from Oxford or Cambridge or somewhere with multiple first-class honours in various, and he kind of described a pain that he felt is that everyone thought he was not that. Everyone thought he was just what he looked like. That, you know, that went through him like a stick of rock, you know. And I found that quite moving. Well, very moving, really.
But are you worried that you don't still seem to be able to say, as it were, what you like about the subject? You can't use the words you like because of, you know, there's a series of words that are off limits, not only to people who are able-bodied, but to disabled people themselves.
I don't think anything is off limits. I think it's more that if people don't want to deal with that, then why should they? I offered that record as something that if you want to go out and buy it and put it on a turntable, you can play it whenever you like. But I wouldn't put it in a loudspeaker and drive around Hounslow blaring it out.
Can I take you back a bit? We've leapt forward into the philosophy. You contracted polio when you were 7. What do you remember about that time, about the
I don't remember signing the contract. I'll tell you that. I deny all knowledge of that bit. Ask my lawyer. I remember being at my grandmother's. I'm feeling ill. I think it must have been like August, I think. And I was down there in Cornwall on my holidays from Upminster in Essex. And I remember feeling ill and being in an ambulance and like a feverish affair. And my mum was in Essex, and I think they told her I was very ill, and she got a milk train or something, and I was in Truro Isolation Hospital. I remember her coming in to see me and bringing me a new animal for a farmyard every day on top of the locker, like a little duck pond made of a mirror, so it looked like water with ducks on it. I don't ever remember being scared or being in a horror show or anything like that, or anyone being horrible to me. And I think if you're fairly helpless and fairly feverish and you're being looked after, I don't think you know really what the horror is, or you don't really see it as other people might see it.
Was there a point presumably further on, when you realised that something pretty massive had happened, and the things that you'd been able to do as a 7-year-old, you might not be able to do from now on.
I don't ever remember that. I think always, everywhere I was in terms of hospitals and so forth, I was in a next door bed to somebody else who was either the same as me or worse off than me. I mean, I've never been in prison as an inmate, but I don't believe they go around asking each other why they're in. I don't think you even notice those things. I think you're all in that environment. I can remember more like rolling up newspaper to kill wasps or various like lunacies that took place amongst a load of healthy, otherwise healthy children, all shouting and screaming. I remember all those things, but I don't really remember any kind of inner wonderings at that time. No, I was only 7 or 8.
When you came out and you got better, or as better as you were going to get, you went to school, and you went to a special school for disabled children.
Yeah.
What was that like?
That was Chailey. That was righteous, I think you could describe it as. It was pretty tough, I suppose, in many ways. In other ways, I think there was a lot of end tendrils of the new National Health Service in 1950, or whenever I went there, 51. So it was still partly a hangover from being a charity place. There was still a certain amount of charitableness going on. Like, I think they taught you a trade in those days, either bootmaker or printer or carpenter. I think they were the 3 trades. So in those ways, it was devoted to little crippled children learning a useful trade. That's how it started.
Well, you were boarding this school.
I think they all were boarding. Everyone was.
How did you feel about this? I mean, you say you describe how, in a way, that being ill in hospital maybe didn't make that much impact on you. But before that, you'd been at home and you got a close relationship with your mum. How did you feel about suddenly being in this boarding situation?
I remember crying. I remember waking up in the morning and hearing a bell ringing and facing a wall and knowing that you were not home. I remember that, and missing my mates and a couple of friends I had when I was a kid. Missing that very much, and home and family. But equally, there was a lot going on there all the time. It kept pretty busy and quite distracted. And there was a lot of funny people there, a lot of humorists. There wasn't a lot of demarcation. I mean,